as mentioned, so now I teach at Buffalo State College in the dance program in the theater department. And the work that I mostly do is education courses for my students. So I teach the creative movement for children class. And I teach a course, or I'm writing a course right now called Movement Methods. How do we use kinesthetic tactile methods to teach math, science, social studies in the regular classroom? And then I also teach a course called Teaching Dance. And that's for my students, of course, that are going on to be dance educators in the schools, or moving on to the college level, or in after-school programming and arts and ed work. I want to kind of reaffirm some of the things that were already said today. Robert, and I was jotting things down as I was talking too, and Robert's comments about, you know, how we see things and connecting the dots, and I thought it was very interesting that it was a box. And that they weren't outside of the box, you know what I mean? And how we use that expression, and it was a literal drawing of a box, meaning that they're still inside that box. You know, so just to bring about these ideas of sometimes what we express physically is what we're thinking emotionally, and we need to get out of that for our kids' sake, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I have a couple of things that I'm going to address as we keep moving along, but I am going to have you get up and moving, right? Because I do believe in kinesthetic tactile learning, and we often teach auditory and visual, and we forget all about the kinesthetic tactile. And so I'm going to do a couple of activities with you guys that bring about that kinesthetic tactile, and then we'll just kind of debrief afterward a little bit. So everybody on your feet. Yeah, come on up. We created space here so that we can be together up here. And again, everybody, you know, it's your own. There's no preconceived idea on my part on what this is going to look like. This all just needs to be what you're comfortable with. You know your bodies and what you're capable of. So please just, you know, have fun. And yes, we do have the video rolling, so I can't say you're not on camera, because you are. But it's a safe place, right? It's all about learning and providing the best we can for our kids. So come in a little bit. I don't need all of this space. Just fill it. Just fill it. Yeah, just fill it. Jen knows, she's worked with me a billion times, so just fill the space, right? Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is to make the shape of a tree. How would you make the shape of a tree? I'm going to give you 3 counts. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. All right, great. So much like we were talking about, right? Yeah, with the 4 points on the box, and you know, when I ask kids, often when I start talking about shaping, you guys can relax. When I talk about shaping with the body, and I say make the shape of the tree, right? There's this. They think of this trunk, and then these arms go up here like this. But I want you to think about a specific tree. Maybe it's an ornamental tree in your front yard. Maybe it's a big weeping willow. Maybe it's a tree that fell. I don't know, all right? So I want you to think about a specific tree. And I'm going to count to 3, and I'm going to ask you to make the shape of that tree. Ready? Go. 1, 2, 3, freeze. Interesting. Interesting, right? Very different. Just take a little glance around the room, right? Much more interesting to look at than a whole bunch of people just kind of standing like this, right? Which some of you were not, but that isn't where we tend to go. And rest. And then rest. Okay. So what you're doing right now is you're making shapes with your body. And I'm asking you to do things in the psychomotor category, right? But almost everything we do has a psychomotor, cognitive, and affective skill-building quality. Those are education terms. If you're in the school districts working with the schools, you need to know their language. If we're to take what we're doing right now on a higher level, then we need to work at that higher level. And just like in theater, if you want to communicate to the designers, you need to understand some of their language in order for that communication to happen. If we're working in the school districts or with the after-school programs who operate on this education level, that doesn't mean you need to change who you are and what you do best, but you need to be able to communicate with them on their level. So psychomotor is movement, right? Using the body to move. So when I ask you to make the shape of a tree, let's take it really simply. Go ahead and make this shape of this tree again. Anything you want, make a different tree even. Just make the shape of a tree. Okay? So the psychomotor learning outcome right now, and I'm going to attach all of this to the stuff these guys gave you in terms of those curriculum, guidelines, right? The psychomotor that you're making right now is making shapes with your body. Okay? Rest. What's the cognitive? The cognitive is the academic, the brain. What's the cognitive? What are you doing? What do you learn? You know, what does your brain have to do to make this happen?
Think about trees.
Okay, right? And so identifying a lot of different trees. I don't know exactly what grade level that happens in, right? But what a great way if somebody is doing that for you to make that connection very organically to what's going on in the grade level, right? The various trees in New York State, and what are they and what do they do? And I don't know, but it's, there's simple ways for you to take the lesson that you already have and make these connections to what's going on academically, all right? So what else other than the various kinds of trees?
Someone had like a windblown tree.
Okay.
So I thought about why the wind blows a tree that way, or why a tree would be tilted towards the sun, or
especially in Western New York, right? You know when you're driving on the thruway from east to west, all the trees are going like this. Yeah. So what's going on with the climate, even around here, that a tree might look like that? All right. So I'm just making this shape, because obviously what I go in and do is dance, right? So I'm making this shape, but it can be connected to all different kinds of things. Yes?
I made an intertextual reference. So I thought of the giving tree, and the giving tree, and I was the stump at the end where he was just like, you can just sit on me.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm an English teacher, so that's where I go for the book.
Right,
Like
okay,
give a tree
good.
from a book.
Right, and this goes back, I'm going to keep referencing, this goes back to the discussion of your strengths when we were looking at the curriculum guideline. What are your strengths? So if the strength is English teacher and you go to that place, that's great, make that connection. It works, right? This reference also works for the affective skill building, which is social skills, right? Which we need to do a whole lot of these days with our little ones. So social skill development. So making the shape of a tree, what happened affectively? What did you get from it from a social skills standpoint?
Different trees, different memories that achieve that particular tree.
Right, great. So you could make the connection between, look at all the different trees, and they live in harmony, right? So look at all of the different people, and can't we do the same? I mean, you can make that sort of a connection, right? So I'm going to just show you this little thing with shaping, because shaping can happen with using the body to make things that we are familiar with. I'd like everybody to make the shape of the first letter of their first name. How would you make the first letter with your whole body? No thinking, just do. How do you make that letter? Right? What a great way to introduce yourself to the class, or for the class to introduce themselves to you. Right? So you could have this, and rest everybody. You can have this great big circle, and it moves very quickly, right? My name is Joy, let's make the shape, make a J for me. Ready? Here we go. Boom, and sometimes you got some low level ones and some high level ones, right? So it's a great way to meet the group, and it can roll very quickly around. So you could use shaping that way. Shaping is simply putting body parts into different points of what we call our kinesphere. All right? And what I'm trying to do, you guys, is make this connection to anything that you might do. Whether it's the zoo, or it's the art gallery, or it's the BPO. You can use kinesthetic tactile to do almost anything. It's just a different mode of learning. And so many of our kids want to get up and move around anyway, right? So this gives them that opportunity to do it within a structure. Okay, so body parts into different points of your kinesphere. So again, anybody, what grade level are we learning body parts like elbows and knees or things like that? Anybody know?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten? Pre-K, kindergarten?
Like joints is 8th grade, like ball and joints.
There you go. Okay, so this is a great example like this. Or muscles, right? This is my bicep, this is my tricep, or organs. Where's my heart, you know, my lung, whatever. So I'm going to go simple with you, but you can understand what I'm talking about here. You can add to the curriculum without any big effort at all, right? So I'd like you to put your elbow to the top of your, and again, this is all improvisation, so move quickly. Your elbow to the top of your kinesphere. Go. 1, 2, 3, freeze. Whatever, just solve the problem. Just do it quick. Ready? And relax. Your knee to the bottom of your kinesphere. Go. 1, 2, 3, freeze. Here we go. A ball and socket joint to the side of your kinesphere. That would be your hip or your shoulder, friends. Okay? Or your, let's see, your brain to the back of your kinesphere. There you go. Okay? So now it's going to be like Twister, and I'm just going to go back to basics. And I'm going to call out 3 different things, and I want you to try and put them into those points of your kinesphere. So your finger to the bottom of your kinesphere, your foot to the side of your kinesphere, and your elbow to the back of your kinesphere. Freeze and hold to shape. Great. We've got some people way down low. We've got some people a little bit higher. Rest. Right? Like I said, this is like Twister. Your knee to the back of your kinesphere, your shoulder to the bottom of your kinesphere, and your nose to the top of your kinesphere. Yeah, right, however it works for you. Look at all the different shapes and rest. Okay, so again, doing this, and you could add to the curriculum by calling out, you know, those muscles or bones or joints or organs or whatever. It might be with the little, you know, if somebody says your elbow to the bottom of your kinesphere and this little sweetie goes like this, we know something's going on. The fun thing about doing movement or kinesthetic tactile is you get immediate feedback. Immediate feedback, right? And we were talking about assessment. Assessment isn't always written. When we think of assessment, it's kind of like pre and post, let's write it out, answer these questions. I can assess very quickly right now whether you know the joints in your body or not. I can see it, it's right in front of me, right? So I could do this, and then maybe at the end of whatever it is we're doing, it's like, here's a piece of paper, and you have to make a shape with these 3 things. And then I can look at that piece of paper and look very quickly and see whether they got that or not, right? Okay, good. So that's just stuff with shaping. Now, like I said, shaping can be something that we're familiar with, and shaping can also be abstract. So I'm going to ask you to make a closed, low shape. A closed, low shape. All right, and while you're down there, you guys, please be in a comfortable position for yourself. And I'm always this educator who addresses things as they come to mind with me. I dressed like this today because I knew I was coming to work with you doing movement. It's very important that we share with, if you're the only cultural specialist going out to work with a group, then you get it. But if you have others and you're just representing right now, be sure that they are professionally dressed, but in a manner that allows them to do what it is that they need to do. Don't wear your best dress when you're messing around with paints. It's not going to work, right? You have to be that mentor for those children. You can't be afraid to touch the paints. They'll be afraid to touch the paints, right? You can't be afraid to get down into the bottom of your kinesphere. They'll be afraid to get down into the bottom of their kinesphere. Now, if you're not comfortable with it, then you can gesture and things like that to guide them, but you still need to look like you're ready to do it. I couldn't come to you today, even though I'm not getting down there, in heels and a dress. It wouldn't work. You'd be looking at me and going, this doesn't make any sense at all, right? So professional yet appropriate for the situation. And again, since I teach 18 to mostly 22 or 23-year-olds at the college, you wouldn't believe what they think is appropriate, right? So we have to guide, and educate. So you're down there in this closed, low position. Stay there for just a second, make sure you're comfortable. Stay there for just a second, and I love that you're using that chair so that you are absolutely comfortable with where you are. Yep, fabulous. Okay, I'm going to ask you to tell me what it feels, not physically, but emotionally feels like down there for you. What emotion would you attach to the shape you're in right now? Go ahead, anybody can say anything.
Despair.
Despair.
Safe.
Safe?
Sad.
Sad.
Rested.
Rested.
Frustrated.
Rested. Okay. And everybody stand up, please. And make a big, high, open shape. Anything you want to do, big, high, open. And think about those body parts reaching into the different points of your kinesphere. No symmetrical shapes. Asymmetrical. Asymmetrical. If you're symmetrical, change it up. Asymmetrical, right? Open shapes. Great. And stay with this one for just a second. And breathe into it just a little. Yeah. And what does that feel like? When would you be in this kind of a shape?
Yoga.
Yoga. How do you feel at yoga?
Good.
Good. Okay.
Free.
Free? Anybody else?
Sweaty.
Sweaty. But again, try not to do the physical. Try to do when would you be like this in space?
You're happy or celebrating?
Happy or celebrating?
Not
Present.
often during the day.
No,
You're not open, they're not walking down the hall like that.
but this is abstracted. This is abstracted. If I were to name this sculpture, this abstract sculpture of people right now, what would we call it? You look like celebration in some ways
Last
to
day
me.
of school.
Last day of school. Okay, right? So the shaping can go into the affective also. Show me a shape of how you're feeling right now. Would you be closed or open? High or low? Symmetrical or asymmetrical? Go ahead and make the shape. But think about the shape as being, different body parts into different points of your kinesphere. Like, how would you really form this? If you were the clay and the sculptor, how would you create this shape? For all of you guys that wrote creative on your sheets, yeah, be thinking about that. Good, and rest. Okay, so this is a way to use shaping. Let's process this as the learners. What are you learning about yourself right now? Don't be afraid,
It takes
everybody.
me a
Learn this
long time to
together.
think of an answer to you.
It takes you a while to
I process every time you say that, and then you'll say something while I'm still processing, and that becomes contradictory.
Okay?
But
Okay.
not negatively contradictory, just, well, that doesn't balance out well. I don't
Okay.
know,
So what do you recognize about yourself with that?
I'm pretty global and very comfortable taking my time.
Okay, good. Yeah, right? And anybody else?
Always symmetrical.
You're always symmetrical.
Super analytical, is even order.
Interesting.
So you said don't do it.
Okay. Yeah, good, good. What does this teach you about being the teacher? What are you learning as the educator now, knowing that you're processing this yourself? How does this inform your practice as an educator, as a cultural specialist?
That every student is going to be approaching it in a different way. I found myself thinking, I want to be abstract, but I'm trying so hard to be abstract rather than just doing it.
You're thinking too much, right? And then you get mad at yourself for thinking too much.
Okay, just do it.
Just do it, yeah.
I felt uncomfortable because I have all these issues with arthritis and surgeries, it felt like, oh, everyone can see that. I can't get on the floor easily, so very uncomfortable. So maybe one child who doesn't feel they're creative might, I mean, it was very hard and very.
But that's why I even recognized you for being creative, for using the chair to support you in a way that you felt comfortable participating with the group. Participating with the group without sitting in the back by yourself saying, this isn't me and I can't do this. So that's a celebration. Yay. Right? Seriously. And so as an educator, we need to make sure that we draw everybody in, no matter what they think their ability is. Right?
It's very open for modifications and diversification.
Well, you're helping us step into being our own best teacher.
Good. Great. Right? Yeah. So, okay. So here's what I'm going to ask you guys to do. This is a wonderful activity actually for visual art, because I was going to do a variety of things, but I want to do something with visual so you can see the connections between movement, just movement as a methodology to teach. So I'm going to ask you to grab your, grab a pen if you've been writing notes or whatever, and the back of maybe your agenda for today, all right? So that you keep what you're working on with your agenda for today, and that'll help you to remember what we're doing. So grab your agenda and a pen, and again, I promise that, you know, I'll keep, you'll all be able to work on your own, in your own needs. All right. Okay, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You're going to take your paper and you're going to, let's just do 4 of them today. So just make a big cross through the center of it so you have 4 squares. 4 squares. Okay? And then what I want, this is very simple. What I want you to do is to move around the room. You're going to find 4 architectural symbols, if you will. Just anything, you know, so, and you can use this one if you want to, but let's say, you know, these lights up here. And I want you to, and this isn't a drawing class, right? You're just going to draw them very quickly. You know, find 4 that you can just sketch out in each one of your squares. Something that looks interesting to you. So you're just sketching out, just quickly sketching out these 4 things that you see that you think looks interesting. We'll do like another 30 seconds. Again, remember, you don't have to be this wonderful artist. You just need to grab some of the key components of this symbol or architectural design. Not that they're that complex, right? And if you're finished, I want you, if you're not finished, that's okay, just keep drawing along. I want you to look at them and number them in whatever order you want. So in other words, the first drawing, do you want to make that 1, 2, or are you looking at it now and going, oh, well, you know what, I think I want this one to be number 1. I want that one to be number 2. So go ahead and number them for yourselves, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they have whatever order you would like them to be in. So everybody has their 4 little drawings and they've numbered them 1, 2, 3, and 4, whatever order that you want. Start with your number 1. Okay, you can put your pens down now because you're not using those anymore. Hang on to your little drawings, right? And I want you to start with your number 1. And I want you to look at the shape, whatever it is, and think about how you can transfer that to movement. Right? So what is it and what can you do to it? Right? I want to give an example, but I don't want to give any one of them away. So you guys are creative, you're artists. Yeah, just see if you can figure it out. Go ahead, move people, move, move, move. You cannot do this thinking about it. You must move. If I could have learned to dance thinking about dance, that would have been a beautiful thing. Right? So take your number 1 and figure out some movement for it. Great. And rest. Everybody got one? Fabulous. Look at your number 2. Create some movement for number 2. What does number 2 look like to you? Great, and trust. Go back to number 1 and figure out how to connect number 1 to number 2. The transition is critical. It's not to be dismissed. Right? So I don't want to do this and then go, no, it's got to go, right? Transition from 1 to 2 is equally as important as the individual movements. So here you go, number 1, and when you're ready, find a way to transition into number 2. And when you finish, just rest. And of course, we're going to do the same thing with adding on number 3. So you get the idea, go ahead, add number 3, and then add that on to your 1, 2, and 3, and then number 4, and add on to your 1, 2, 3, 4.
So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4 now.
In your order, however you ordered them. Mhm. We got sound effects going on over here now too. Right? Don't even need music for this one. Great. Yeah? Okay. Let's divide the room in half. This is half of the room. You're the performers. We are the audience. Again, this is just, we're just rolling through right now, right? Again, there's no judgment with anything. So, let's have you start in some sort of opening shape. Body parts into different points of your kinesphere, high or low, closed or open, whatever you'd like to do. And then when you finish in a closing shape, and then we'll know you're done. You ready? Begin. Adding your 1, 2, 3, 4. Audience over here. Performers over here. You're ready? Yeah, make sure you have enough room.
Mind all holidays.
Oh, okay, so we do. That's all right. It's an environmental piece. Performance art. Here we go. Ready and begin. And rest. So let's come back together and process again. Let's start with, what was the psychomotor learning that happened here? What'd you do? Okay, so you choreographed something, so you had to move to do it. It was psychomotor, it was a dance, right? You created a dance. So that what there's psychomotor there. What's the cognitive? And there could be several, everybody, just thinking about, what's the cognitive?
The transitions.
That transitioning is important.
It was impossible for me to transition from 1 to 2 if I kept 1 the same. So
Ah,
I had to.
so you had to alter a little bit, okay?
I saw you, we were doing the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, problem solving, critical thinking, yeah.
You don't remember your sexual shapes?
Identify, no, sexual shapes. That was for you, girl.
Thank you.
All right.
And remember the order.
Remembering the
Yes.
order. Good, Lisa, yeah, remembering the order.
Also kind of just doing that, the idea of if this is an architectural, if it's the exit sign, how do I make an exit sign, something that I can interpret with my body?
Good.
So I think making that transition is both cognitive.
Right, yeah, absolutely, right? What's the affective? That would be the social skill building, right? What's some of the affective?
This is a question I've been wanting to ask you actually. Would you consider not bumping into people, like managing?
Absolutely,
things?
managing your personal space. And how many of us don't, well, I'm gonna put my hand down because I make people move all the time, right? But we hesitate to allow movement because we're afraid they'll hurt each other or they won't control themselves or whatnot. I'm gonna tell you 3 things that I think are very important if you choose to do movement, which I encourage you to do. One of them is freeze is my best friend. Freeze. So everybody just go, and I do it with them ahead of time. So let's imagine I just walked in, we did some stuff together. Go ahead, move everywhere and chit chat with each other, go ahead. And freeze. So when I say freeze, you need to be completely still like a statue. Right? And then what I do to manage is, I never say to them, you guys were getting out of control unless it's really getting bad. What I'll say to them, oh, I forgot to tell you. Let's remember that this so-and-so's room is right next door. So we need to make sure that we're staying in control. Okay, go ahead. The second one that I do is that I tell them that I believe in personal responsibility. So you are in charge of yourself. Now, if you can't be in charge of yourself, then I may have to say, you need to sit for a little while. You know, you do that once or twice. And I don't ask them to come back in. I always say, you come back in when you're ready. When you think you can be a member of the community again and operate in the way you know is supposed to happen, come back and join us. I never say, sit down until I tell you to get back down. Because now it's discipline and there's power, and I don't need that. What I need is for them to be participating in a meaningful way, right?
Will you tell someone, you know, it's time?
Yes, I will. Yes, I
You
will.
let them
If
sit out
someone
long
has
enough, yeah.
sat out long enough, I might say, and I'll pick on Holly because I know her well, I might say, Holly, do you think you can join us again and
Yeah,
be
so you-
okay?
yeah, you don't
I
do that.
ask her.
Yeah.
And if she's like, no, I think I still need to sit here longer, then I'll be like, okay, remember that you can join us when you're ready. And if she's like, yes, then please come back and be with us. You know, again, that whole sort of, people are afraid to let the little ones get up and move because they get out of control. Freeze and personal responsibility. And then I also ask them to be for them to not only keep themselves in control, but they need to be respectful of the other people in the space. I wouldn't want somebody to slam into me and hurt me, so I'm not going to do it to somebody else. Empathy, right? Empathy. And look at all of what we just taught just by getting them to get up and move around, right? So those three things, I think, if you really want to do some movement, freeze, personal responsibility, and empathy. And they're really good about it because they want to get up and move. And they want to please us for the most part, right? So those are ways to add kinesthetic, tactile into what you're doing. And I just named affective, right? So getting back to whoever who said about moving around the space, yeah, right? So that is an affective skill, absolutely. Being careful of your own body in the space around other people. What other affective skill?
Learning that your interpretation of your item is all you need.
That's right.
You don't have to look like the exit sign to everybody else.
That's right.
If it's the exit sign to you, you're done with it.
And isn't that the beauty of what we do in general with the arts and understanding with the culturals? It's all up to interpretation, you know, as long as it's informed. And then that's what we're providing. We're trying to provide that information so that later on in life, when they're at that dinner party and somebody says, have you seen Kleinhand's music hall? Oh my gosh, the architectural structure, and they're right in there going, I know, did you look at that? And look at them, right? And they're right there because they can express themselves and their, the meaning behind it for them personally. But they can join in. Yeah? Okay. I was going to do, let's do another real quick one with shaping, okay? Just another real quick one. You need to get in groups of 3. If there's a group of 4, that's okay.
We need a third.
Okay, yeah, I would, and they need a third, so that, oh, look at how beautiful that works out. I didn't know that any better. All right, so you're going to, there's going to be someone who is the director, somebody who's the shape maker, and somebody who is what I would think of as the blindfolded person. Talk to the other people in your group. If we have time, it rotates so everybody gets a chance to be everything, but talk to the person in your group. Right. Everybody good? Here we go. So, the blindfolded person is going to stand facing this wall. The shape maker is going to stand about 3 feet behind them. The director is going to stand kind of next to the shape maker, but in ear, you know, being for the shape maker to be able, or I'm sorry, the blindfolded person to be able to hear them. Directors, put your hands behind your back. Shape makers, make some sort of an interesting shape, whatever you want to make. Directors, you need to tell the blindfolded person how to get into the shape without showing them or touching them. Ready? Begin. And then you can turn around and look. You gotta turn around and then you'll turn around. So now you would be the blindfolded person. Yep, so if you get it, you can look and then rotate. If you have it blindfolded, then look and then rotate.
Your right hand is
So we do it again?
As soon as you get out, you turn around and look and you rotate. because we have to be careful of time, I'm gonna stop you right there, all right? So if you didn't get a chance to do it, get together with your group later. But let's process this quickly together, process. Would you learn about yourself as the learner? What'd you learn about yourself?
I had a hard time not giving directions as the shape person.
Okay. Okay. So you want to jump in and help the director give the information, right? Okay. Good.
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
One step at a time, one movement at a time.
Okay. Great. And actually, that's a very important piece that I can share, having done this for years and years and years. Children, most of us can only process one piece of information at a time. So notice I said, please get in groups of 3. And then you did that. And then I said, there are these 3 parts, decide who's going to do that. And then you did that. And then I said, this is how, then this person stand here, this person, one step at a time. If I were to say to you, so get into groups of 3 and decide who's going to be the shape maker, direct, and then this person said, what? Right? So when we work, especially with little, we can't process all of that as adults. So when we work with little ones, it makes sense to go one step at a time. In the long run, it's less time to do it that way because there's chaos with them going, what did she say? What did she say? Right? So one step, one, and then for you, right, one movement in the directions, one movement at a time. Great. What else? Anybody, anything else?
I would show people things visually, so it was really hard for me to direct and not just like do it for them. Like just say, put your arm like that.
Okay.
To just use words. You know?
Okay. Good. Good. Yeah. All right. How about putting your educator hat on? What's the psychomotor here? What were you making?
For me as the shape maker, I wanted to make it look as interesting as possible.
Okay.
I wanted it to be a challenge.
Okay.
To see.
Yeah, good. So again, working with shapes, and there's some other psychomotor things going on in there, but how about the cognitive? What's the cognitive?
Communicating directions.
Communicating directions,
Speaking clearly,
speaking clearly. How about for the blindfolded person?
listening.
Listening.
And trust.
Trust, which is an affective. That's all right though, Kathy, right? What are the affective? Trust.
I was the shape maker 3rd, so it took me a second to get started because I had to make a.
You wanted to do something new.
Yeah.
Great, okay. Can anybody see this particular activity transferring into something that you already do? Now again, you need to step out of the box for this, right? This is, I'm working on shapes and stuff, but what is it that you might be doing, even if it's writing?
We do it in tours. So when you're in front of the Giacometti, you imagine what that would look like. Or we take works of art and then have school children like, okay, now you're the dog in that, so how fast would your feet go if you carried me? Or what's the stance as he's walking, and how do you put your body in that way? So,
Fabulous.
and on visually impaired tours, it's incredibly important because you can actually guide the person to feel you put their legs in that space and give them a way to see it without seeing it.
Mm-hmm. And that exactly goes back to, what if you have a hearing impaired or a visually impaired? How would you adapt something like this or use it, or somebody who is a little bit physically challenged? You know, I mean, I'm in that room going step touch with about 95% of the kids, but I've got the 2 that are in the wheelchair going like this. They will participate, right, and feel a part of the group.
It's just even great as an icebreaker too for teamwork. I mean, because in theater, it's not about one person.
Sure.
You know, you have to have the director and to work together to get that,
right,
to get the final project. So I mean, that's a great icebreaker too.
Good. Patience, right? You gotta learn patience. If you're the director and that person just is not getting it, right? You have to learn patience. Great. Have a seat, everybody, and I just want to, I have like maybe a minute.
Oops, sorry. All right.
So I just want to connect some of these things to, and I hope this was helpful, just in thinking about how to use kinesthetic tactile, and no matter what you're doing, not just as dance or even theater, but using those kinesthetic tactile activities to educate. So with the curriculum guidelines that you had, if you even look at those quickly, where it says the student will, those are learning outcomes. Again, so if you're working with educators, they will understand this. Those are learning outcomes. All right, what will the student be able to do when you've left? Very important. When you create your activities, you need to follow, and that's why it's great when you meet with the after-school program director or the teacher in the classroom or whatever. What are you agreeing on are the learning outcomes when you go in? And that's what you create your activities around. It could be very broad. I just want the kids to be able to collaborate and be kind to each other. Great. You use your, but you're teaching your art on top of it. Do you know what I mean? We just kind of sneak in there a little bit with doing some of these other things. So we always do more. The arts and culturals always do much more than just entertain you. Yeah? We've got that psychomotor, cognitive, affective stuff going on all the time. You can teach it visual, auditory, kinesthetic, tactile, but it's great to mix it up. Even when it's interesting, when I do presentations at conferences, they put me in this teeny little room with all these tables and chairs and a projector with a screen. And I go, get rid of this. Because I'd be a fake if that's how I did my work. So it's like, all right, no, I need to share with you what I do and the importance of it by having you do it. That's why I asked you to process it, both as a learner, because in professional development, we love that stuff, right? We're moving around and doing it, and then we leave and we go, oh, I learned all of this wonderful stuff, and I haven't put it into my practice at all. So I challenge you, right, to take something kinesthetic, tactile, and put it into your practice. If you do, right, then you have to dress in a certain way to be able to move with them and encourage. Some other things that I wrote on here. So that curriculum guide, look at that as being able, those learning outcomes, and being able to develop your lesson plan using kinesthetic, tactile stuff. Some of the stuff I touched on already, right? That whole idea, if we want to be taken seriously, you heard Nakia and Kim, research-based. We have research to back up what we do is valuable. And not just because my heart says so. Now there's the brain research that says we know that it improves academics. You can look at that whole list, and if you look on that list, you see the psychomotor, where it's talking about obesity, you see the academic, and you see the cognitive, and you see the affective skills, the social skills on there, right? So look that stuff over, know that it's research-based. As Robert said, passion, professionalism, we have to go in that way. So sharing that stuff with others, we can't assume that our colleagues know that that's the way to dress or the way to conduct oneself. And then I can't say enough about how we work with children and that idea of mutual respect and personal responsibility. Because you never want to get in one of these with any kid. And if we're working in some really tough neighborhoods or situations, we want to embrace them, not put them up against a wall. Yeah, so thank you very much. I hope this was fun for you guys and you got a lot of stuff out of it. Thanks, yeah. I know we're running out of time.
We're about to, in our tables and in our groups, we're about to reflect on this process. But if
Okay.
you have a question for Joy, now would be the time.
Because I need to dash, I need to teach in 20 minutes, so I have to go close to 8.
Maybe it's not a question. We do the water cycle, and we do cycles through kinesthetic learning, which turns, I didn't realize this, and so I teach it in 3rd grade. When I taught 4th grade on their state assessment, they had the water cycle questions. and you saw them doing
Yes.
the dance. So it turned it into motor memory.
Yes.
And I think that that's a great, once you turn it into motor memory, even though you don't review it, you see kids doing their dance as they're taking a test of condensation and vibration.
And I want to talk with you a little bit more about that, to be honest. That's my research
Okay,
on movement memory.
okay.
And why kinesthetic tactile is so important, not only for that kid who's got the yayas and has to get it out, but because movement memory is real, right? You learn how to ride a motorcycle. I just bought a car that is a standard. I haven't driven a standard in 20 years. Jumped right in. Felt good. But yes, movement memory. So I'd love to talk with you more about whether you're really observing that in your classroom. Cool. Anybody else?
What color is your car? Because I want to watch out for it.
It's gold.
That way.
That's right, I like it, it's shiny object.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you.